We stand at a precipice, gazing into the heart of a profound, unsettling truth. For too long, we have been led to believe that the ultimate aim of existence is a state of passive contentment, a gentle, unproblematic serenity we call happiness. We are told to seek it, to chase it, to build our lives around its elusive glow. But what if this pursuit, this veneration of happiness, is not an ascent towards our highest potential, but rather a descent into a gilded cage? What if the very concept of happiness, as it is so widely understood and disseminated, is a carefully crafted lie, a comforting fable invented not for our liberation, but for our control? Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who dared to speak uncomfortable truths, saw through the comforting illusions that bind humanity. He questioned the bedrock of our societal values, the very definitions of good and evil, and most critically, the seductive narratives that promise peace at the cost of genuine vitality. He was suspicious of any concept that sought to pacify, to homogenize, to smooth over the rough, vital edges of human existence. For Nietzsche, these pacifying ideals often served not the flourishing individual, but the collective, the herd, the very structures that thrive on conformity and docility. Consider this analogy. A shepherd seeking to maintain a peaceful flock might weave tales of a perpetually green pasture, a place of endless comfort, free from the dangers of the wild. This narrative, while soothing, serves a clear purpose: to keep the sheep within the confines of the pen, content with their lot, and unwilling to venture into the unknown, the challenging, the truly fertile grounds that lie beyond. Similarly, the pervasive narrative of happiness can function as a societal opiate, dulling our senses to the deeper currents of life, discouraging the arduous but ultimately empowering journey of self-overcoming. It encourages to remain within the safe, predictable boundaries, to avoid the risks and the discomforts that are essential for true growth. Nietzsche's profound concept of the will to power offers a stark counterpoint to this illusion. This is not the crude desire for domination over others, but the fundamental existential drive within all living things to expand, to create, to overcome oneself, to impose form upon chaos, and to establish one's own values. It is the engine of self-mastery, the relentless impulse towards becoming more than we are, independent of external validation or the shallow approval of the masses. It is the courage to face the abyss within and to forge meaning from its depths. So we must ask ourselves, what truly lies beneath the surface of this universally promoted happiness? What do we sacrifice in its relentless pursuit? And what does the courageous rejection of this manufactured contentment reveal about the path to genuine, unshakable strength and profound self-authorship? This is the descent we begin today into the darker, more revealing truths of Nietzschean philosophy and into the liberating power of authentic self-overcoming. The societal obsession with happiness has become a relentless drumbeat, a primary metric by which we measure our worth and our success. We are conditioned to believe that a life devoid of significant suffering, a life of smooth sailing and constant positive affirmation, is the ultimate achievement. This relentless pursuit, however, often stems not from a deep wellspring of inner strength, but from a primal instinct for comfort and an equally primal fear of pain. It is an avoidance, a turning away from the very forces that could forge us into something more. Nietzsche illuminated this tendency with piercing clarity. He observed how a certain kind of morality emerges from this desire for ease, a morality that values rest over striving, comfort over challenge. He wrote, "The will to truth, which is to make us believe that in the world we know everything worth knowing is discovered, and that we are now to rest from the chase. This rest from the chase, this belief that all significant truths have been found, and that we can now settle into a state of passive knowing, is itself a symptom of what Nietzsche termed slave morality. It is a morality that prioritizes the comfort of the herd, the collective's placid contentment over the individual's arduous but vital journey of self-overcoming. It is a rejection of struggle, a fear of the discomfort that is the very crucible of growth. From a psychological philosophical perspective, we see this reflected in our modern obsession with fleeting pleasures. Our brains are wired for immediate gratification, for the rush of dopamine that accompanies novelty or reward. The constant pursuit of these neurochemical hits, driven by social media, consumer culture, and a pervasive emphasis on positive experiences, can create a profound dependency. This pursuit, masquerading as happiness, can become an addiction, a sophisticated form of self-deception that masks a deeper existential dissatisfaction. It keeps us tethered to superficial comforts, preventing us from turning inward, from exploring the more challenging, more rewarding terrain of our own being. It is a happiness that numbs rather than illuminates. And within this narrative of happiness, a subtle yet potent resentment often festers. When individuals cannot achieve this prescribed state of effortless joy, when their lives are inevitably marked by struggle and pain, they are often made to feel inadequate. This inadequacy breeds not a desire for self-mastery, but a quiet bitterness, a passive aggression, or a corrosive self-loathing. It is the pain of failing to meet an artificial standard, a standard designed for the comfort of the many, not the challenging ascent of the few. This resentment, this feeling of being broken or flawed, prevents the very transformation that true strength demands. We are, in essence, often living within a golden cage of happiness. It is a cage that appears beautiful, comfortable, and secure. It promises safety and ease, but it is a cage nonetheless. It confines our spirit, prevents us from testing our limits, and ultimately prohibits us from soaring. It keeps us from the wild, untamed heights of our own potential, a potential that can only be realized through embracing the very struggles that this manufactured happiness seeks to eradicate. We must question the bars of this cage and consider what lies beyond dot. At the core of our being lies a fundamental drive, a force Nietzsche identified as the will to power. This is not the brutal, egoistic desire to dominate others, but a profound, intrinsic impulse to grow, to overcome limitations, to push boundaries, and to create meaning from the raw material of existence. It is the engine of self-overcoming, the relentless urge to become more than we currently are. This stands in stark opposition to the passive will to comfort, the shallow pursuit of effortless happiness that society so readily promotes. This will to comfort seeks only ease, avoidance of difficulty, and a static state of pleasantness, effectively paralyzing the very drive that defines life itself. Nietzsche's words from Asterisk, "Thus spoke Zarathustra," offer a key to understanding this authentic drive. That which is done out of love only happens, even beyond good and evil. This love is not the sentimental affection typically associated with happiness. Instead, it is a deep-seated passion for the process of becoming, for the arduous journey of self-creation. It is a love for the struggle itself, for the discipline, for the act of imposing one's will and one's values onto the world, regardless of conventional notions of good or bad, pleasure or pain. It is the embrace of the challenge, the dedication to the unfolding of one's potential that fuels this powerful drive. To reclaim this authentic impulse, we must reframe our relationship with discomfort. Instead of instinctively recoiling from it, we can engage in a deliberate suffering inventory. Take moments to consciously catalog instances of challenge, hardship, or pain. Ask yourself, how did this difficulty contribute to my personal growth? How did it forge resilience within me? What deeper understanding of myself or the world did it unlock? By reframing suffering not as an enemy to be avoided, but as a potent catalyst for transformation, we begin to harness the true power of our experiences. The hidden truth is that the societal emphasis on happiness often functions as a subtle form of manipulation. By promoting an ideal of effortless contentment, it discourages the very striving, the very overcoming. That leads to genuine self-mastery and the creation of profound meaning. It aims to keep individuals pacified, content with their current state, and thus more easily managed. It is a way to ensure that the slaves remain content within their perceived limitations, never questioning questioning the nature of their chains or the potential for liberation. Consider the athlete. Their ultimate satisfaction often lies not in the fleeting moment of receiving a medal, a symbol of external validation and transient happiness. Instead, it resides in the grueling hours of training, the relentless discipline, the pushing of physical and mental limits. This is the will to power in its purest form, the drive to transcend oneself, to master one's own being through deliberate effort and profound commitment, finding meaning not in the absence of struggle, but in the very act of confronting and overcoming it. This is the path to authentic power. The concept of amor fati, the love of fate, presents a radical departure from the pursuit of a life free from suffering. It is not a passive resignation to whatever befalls us, a meek acceptance of hardship. Rather, it is an active, even defiant, embrace of all aspects of one's life, the joy and the agony, the triumphs and the failures, the light and the shadow, as essential, necessary components of one's becoming. To truly love one's fate is to understand that every experience, no matter how painful, is a building block, a crucial element in the grand, unfolding architecture of the self. Nietzsche articulated this profound idea with his characteristic intensity. My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it. This is the ultimate affirmation, a complete acceptance of one's life in its entirety. It directly contradicts the shallow pursuit of a predetermined, pleasant outcome we label happiness. Instead, amor fati calls us to love the process of overcoming, to cherish the struggle itself, recognizing that it is within these very challenges that our true strength and our unique destiny are forged. It is the willingness to affirm not just a hoped-for future, but the entirety of the path that leads there. To truly grasp the power of this philosophy, consider a profound thought exercise, the eternal recurrence of this moment. Imagine that you would have to relive this exact present moment with all its imperfections, its pains, its joys, its confusions, not just once, but for all eternity. Would your immediate reaction be one of despair, of cursing the circumstances and wishing for a different reality? Or could you, through a profound act of will, find a way to affirm it, to love it as the indispensable foundation upon which your entire existence and the future self you aspire to be is built? This is the ultimate test of authentic self-creation, a radical embrace of what is. The deep-seated fear of this eternal recurrence is, in essence, the fear of one's own life. It is the fear of the choices made, the battles fought, the wounds endured. To truly embrace eternal recurrence is an act of radical self-ownership, a profound rejection of any external mandate for happiness or a perfect, painless existence. It is to declare with absolute conviction, this is my life, and I affirm it in its entirety for all eternity. This is the liberating power of accepting what is and transforming it through the force of one's will. Think of the sculptor. They do not lament the marble that is chipped away, the excess stone that is removed. Instead, they embrace it, understanding that each fragment removed, each strike of the chisel, is a necessary part of the process that reveals the final, magnificent form hidden within. Amor fati is precisely this, the embrace of the chipped marble of our existence, the acceptance of every necessary, even painful, experience as the essential means by which our true selves are brought into being. Nietzsche drew a sharp distinction between two fundamental types of morality, master morality and slave morality. Master morality, born from strength and self-affirmation, is the creative force that defines its own values from within. It is the morality morality of those who possess an abundance of power, who affirm life in its totality, and who see their own actions and character as inherently good. Slave morality, conversely, arises from the reactive resentment of the weak. It defines good as that which alleviates their suffering and evil as whatever the powerful embody. It is a morality born out of negation, a reaction against the master, rather than an affirmation of one's own being. The cornerstone of master morality is a profound self-reverence. As Nietzsche articulated, the noble soul has reverence for itself. This self-reverence is not arrogance, but a deep-seated respect for one's own potential, one's own creative force, and one's own journey of becoming. The noble soul does not seek validation from external sources or adhere to an externally imposed definition of virtue or happiness. Instead, their own being, their own capacity for self-overcoming, and their own unique values are the ultimate good. They are the creators of their own moral landscape, not subjects of a preordained ethical code designed for the masses. To cultivate this inner sovereign, we can engage in a value revaluation exercise. Begin by identifying a commonly held societal good or a typical pursuit of happiness. Perhaps the relentless drive for material wealth, the constant need for external approval, or the widespread belief in a life of pure ease. Critically examine its origins and motivations. What slave values does it uphold? Does it prioritize comfort over growth, conformity over individuality, passivity over action? Once you have deconstructed these externally imposed values, you can begin to create your own contrasting value, one rooted in self-overcoming, in the courage to face difficulty, and in the authentic exercise of your own power. The hidden truth is that the good so often promoted by narratives of societal happiness is frequently a sophisticated tool for maintaining order and conformity. It serves to pacify individuals, to discourage them from challenging the status quo, and to keep the vast majority content with their current lot. This is the morality of the weak seeking to impose their limitations and their fears upon the strong, thereby preventing the emergence of genuine individuality and the creation of new values. It is a subtle form of control disguised as benevolence. Consider the analogy of the artist and the critic. The sovereign artist dictates the aesthetic, creating new forms and challenging existing perceptions through the sheer force of their vision and will. They are not concerned with whether their work aligns with the prevailing tastes or brings immediate happiness to the masses. The critic, on the other hand, merely reacts to existing forms, judging them by established, often herd-driven standards. Master morality, like the sovereign artist, is about the creation of value, about asserting one's own standards and living by them, rather than passively judging oneself and others by the herd's limited, resentful metrics. We arrive now at the profound solitude of the free spirit, the individual who dares to break free from the suffocating embrace of herd mentality and the dictates of societal norms. This is the one who has seen through the illusion of superficial happiness, who understands that true fulfillment lies not in passive contentment, but in the arduous, often solitary path of self-creation. This independence, this radical freedom, inherently carries a weight, a burden of struggle that the slave morality of comfort cannot comprehend or endure. Nietzsche's potent declaration from asterisk, "Thus spoke Zarathustra," asterisk, resonates deeply here. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. This why is not a preordained destiny or a comforting societal role. It is the purpose forged from within, the self-created meaning derived from the will to power and the ongoing act of self-overcoming. This internal compass, this profound sense of purpose, becomes the sustaining force that allows the free spirit to endure the inherent unhappiness, the challenges, the isolation, the constant questioning that accompanies true independence. It is the resilience born from a life lived authentically, a life that rejects the easy answers and embraces the difficult questions. To cultivate this inner fortitude, we must learn to embrace embrace the power of solitude. This is not the hollow ache of loneliness, but rather the fertile, sacred space where true self-discovery can occur. In solitude, stripped of external pressures and the need for constant validation, one can finally confront their own inner landscape, their shadows, their deepest desires, and critically re-evaluate the values that have been imposed upon them. It is in this profound aloneness that genuine independence is forged, where the self can finally stand on its own, unburdened by the expectations of the crowd. The hidden truth is that the pervasive human need for external approval, the deep-seated fear of judgment and ostracism, often drives individuals back into conformity. They mistake the comfort of belonging to the herd for genuine fulfillment, clinging to the narrative of happiness as a way to avoid the perceived risks of true independence. But this adherence to the crowd's expectations, this silencing of one's own inner voice, ultimately leads to a profound and unacknowledged emptiness. True independence, by its very nature, often requires embracing a degree of isolation, a courageous stepping away from the collective. Consider the majestic eagle. It soars alone, a solitary figure against the vast expanse of the sky, unburdened by the need to flock with others. It charts its own course, driven by its own innate instincts and its own powerful will. This is the embodiment of the free spirit, finding its ultimate why, not in the comfort of the flock or the pursuit of a manufactured happiness, but in the very act of soaring, of living according to its own nature, and of embracing the boundless freedom that solitude affords. This is the unshakable strength of the independent soul. We have journeyed into the shadows, exploring a truth that many shy away from. The pervasive notion of happiness, as it is so often presented to us, is a meticulously crafted illusion. It is a narrative designed not for our liberation, not for our empowerment, but for our control. This comfortable lie, this promise of effortless contentment, serves to pacify the spirit, to quell the vital fire of the will to power, and to keep us bound to the herd, content with our chains. True power, we have seen, does not lie in the avoidance of struggle, but in the courageous embrace of it. We have rediscovered amor fati, the love of fate, not as a passive surrender, but as an active affirmation of all that is, especially that which is difficult and painful. It is the understanding that our struggles are not impediments to our becoming, but the very substance from which our strength is forged. We have touched upon the master morality of self-creation, a morality that finds its highest good, not in the approval of others or in some externally dictated state of happiness, but in the unwavering affirmation of one's own being and the relentless pursuit of self-overcoming. This is the path of the sovereign individual who defines their own values and lives by their own standards. The pursuit of authentic power, therefore, is not a quest to eliminate pain, but a profound journey to find meaning and an unshakable strength, within the inevitable challenges that life presents. It is the courage to be the artist of one's own life, to sculpt one's existence from the raw material of experience, shaping it not into a comfortable, passive form, but into a testament to one's own indomitable will. It is the brave decision to live authentically, even when authenticity demands a departure from the comforting illusions of the crowd. Consider the figure of Prometheus. For bringing the fire of knowledge, of independent thought to humanity, he endured an eternal, agonizing punishment. Yet, in this very suffering, he embodied a profound act of liberation, a defiance against the control of those who would keep humanity in ignorance and passive contentment. The pursuit of true self-mastery, the embrace of radical independence and intellectual freedom, often demands a similar enduring of hardship, but it is this very suffering, this willingness to bear the consequences of one's own will, that forges the strongest spirits and ultimately liberates us from the subtle yet pervasive control of manufactured contentment. So we ask you now, what aspect of this widely accepted narrative of happiness are you ready to deconstruct? What comfortable illusion are you willing to shed in the pursuit pursuit of your own authentic power. Share your deepest insights, your most challenging questions in the comments below. And if you seek further explorations into the depths of radical self-mastery, into the unshakable strength that lies beyond the lie of easy happiness, then subscribe. Join us on this journey.